Hello and welcome. I'm Darren, and today I will. Why I'd be doing this, I don't know, but I will attempt to help or respond to Andrew's video. Andrew's video was of the issue that he is having with his stuttering or inconsistency on the NVIDIA GPU. Now, there's too many reasons that could happen, and it's not necessarily, although I will get called a NVIDIA shield for saying it, but you're running two different systems. So you might have a problem with your motherboard, you might have a problem with an SSD, you might have a problem with instability with your RAM timings. There could be a lot of reasons from one system to the other, unless you're running something on an open air test bed and you're just swapping the GPUs across, which I understand you don't want to do because you're moving drivers across. You're never going to be exactly apples to apples. Like, I'm not apples to apples because I run an Intel system with my NVIDIA GPU and I run a AMD platform with my AMD GPU. So completely different systems. It's never an apples to apples comparison. But regardless, so you were obviously having this issue. I believe it was in Assassin's Creed Odyssey where you were having this inconsistent frame time. That doesn't look great there, but it's.
When you're running straight, I mean, you can play it like running straight, whatever. I mean,
so you were having this problem where you were turning this camera and this was doing, for the most part of it, I actually thought it looked all right, and probably your kind of small, like these type of little small things, they're nothing that I would particularly worry about that much. Personally, I don't think those are something that, it's generally like the big spikes. Those are generally what you would feel. So,
and it just bounces the screen, and it looks.
I don't see anything that you were going to see there that was going to bounce your screen. I'm going to be quite honest. That would generally be your big hitches.
Just the way it stutters when you're turning the camera.
So you've got this going on, and this does look strange. This is what happens in Monster Hunter Wilds with the high texture pack.
Let's get you a little closer to that.
So
just start seeing that thing going.
Now, my first piece of advice, and this will be to people that have watched this video that might not understand, and this is obviously to you yourself, is as we watched a little bit further into the video, this was the first thing that I saw. So you're running MSI Afterburner and you're running with an overclock. You can't fault find an issue, especially a stability issue, when you're running with an overclock. And you're not just running with an overclock, you're running with an undervolt. So you can see by looking at your MSI Afterburner 5070 Ti down here, tells you the driver version that you're running, and you can see that you're running with the power limit at maxed out, which it won't be by default. By default, it will be at 100, so you're at 116. Curve is in your core clocks, which tells me that you're running some sort of undervolt. Now, that might be an undervolt plus overclock. That might just be an undervolt. I don't know. And then you're running plus 200 on your memory. So it is impossible to fault find whilst you are doing that. You have to set that back to default, because you have to bear in mind as well that you will be running a factory overclocked GPU. How far you can push a lot of these GPUs past their factory overclock, they might be pushed already to the limit. So you have to bear that in mind. But you just have to reset that. You cannot fault find whilst you are running any type of undervolt and overclock. It's just an impossible. And that's considering that you are doing an undervolt. You might be overvolting for a while now. Curve doesn't really tell me much. I would assume by the way that your temps only, I believe, in this game, I think I saw them max out at 54. Oh, no, you went to 57. Okay. So, 58. I don't know what you were running. I don't know. It's impossible. Your overlay was completely screwed up and clearly not given the information that it should have been given. So this is a bit awkward. I can go into Assassin's Creed myself. I'm stuck because I'm running an internal capture. I don't have a camera that I can film from the outside to show any type of gameplay. I have to run it internally, and by running internally, I am screwing up my own frame times because it's a lot of load extra to run on the GPU by having the encoder running 4K. So I will play for a little bit once I actually put my joypad, turn it back on. We'll play for a little bit. We'll let it do its thing and balance itself out. And hopefully it will run without being interfered by the overlay. But I have, I play this game. I have no issues. I don't feel, when I'm just playing it, when I'm recording a screen capture, like I said, it does put load on it. But when I'm playing it just in general gameplay, I have a relatively smooth, and let's face it, you ain't ever playing a game like this. But I have a perfectly smooth experience. To me, it runs exactly the same as what it did on the XTX. If anything, when I actually ran the game benchmark, I think I had a smoother time. You'll see when I did a side-by-side in my collar videos that I actually had a smoother frame time on the 4080 to what I had on the 7900 XTX. Now, that doesn't mean that the 5070 Ti isn't having issues. This is a 4080. This is a completely different system. And like I said, the issues that I'm going to get, unfortunately, where you are seeing those, you don't feel those. Those are like nothingness. But what you can see is there's nothing particularly... You'll see a bit of a frame drop, obviously, when I'm spinning the camera, as you would expect to. But there's no kind of weird, crazy things going on. And like I said, I've got applications open. I've got OBS running. And we are running a 4K capture. So my advice to you is go to wherever it is that you are running your overclock. Because, as you said, you could see by your video, so you're at plus 200 on the memory. You can see, obviously, this is its stock. This is MSI Afterburner tuning application when you're running your GPU at default settings. Power limit will be 100. So your power limit, I believe your power limit was at 116. Now, whether you can go to 125 like I can, this is an MSI Supreme 4080. So I can push this. This was made for overclocking. I can push this bad boy to, I don't know what the 50 series are like, but I can obviously push this to 125. But by default, it's at 100. It's an already factory overclocked model. Obviously, you had your memory at 200, so that's overclocked above. How far you can push your memory, I don't know. Now in 40 series, I could definitely push this to 600. I could probably push it to 1000 if I up the power limit, and I don't mess around with the core clocks. I don't know how DDR7's working with that. So, and to get curve to show up, so obviously in your core clock, you were getting curve. Now, to get curve to go in there, you can obviously just mess with the frequency. So I could do... What did I just do there? Ignore that. I could do, obviously, plus 200 on the core clocks. I wouldn't. It would crash because there's not... This is already an overclocked model. It wouldn't take plus 200 on the core clocks unless I maybe water-cooled it. But obviously, that's my core clock adjustment. The only way to get curve to show up in there is by doing an undervolt. So if we go into the curve editor and we run how I would normally run an undervolt, so I'd normally take it down by 200 on the core to drop the curve. I would pick a voltage to go with, so let's go at 1050. and then I would drag it up. In fact, 1050 is a bit weak. Let's not do that. Let's go to 975. Although we're not running this anyway. And then I'd bring the clocks back up to where they would normally be. So let's just say 2750 or whatever. Let's say 2740. I'd click apply. And then as you can see, we are now reporting curve because we are running a voltage. So you can, if you really want to fault find and you're interested in why you have a problem because your game's not running stable, clear your undervolt and your overclock, because you'll never find out what's wrong with it while you're running an undervolt and an overclock. The other thing I'd say is there could be, like I said, there could be other reasons. It could be, I can't say because my system runs okay, then that doesn't mean that yours won't. With different series GPUs, obviously I'm on a 40 series, you're on a 50 series. You could have an issue with your SSD, you could have an issue with your motherboard. Like I said, there could be tons of different reasons. It could be a program that you're running on your system that is causing the issue. I understand that you didn't make a video trying to slate it. When you read the comments, obviously you see a lot of people that want to jump on the "it's because it's NVIDIA, this always happens" bandwagon. It kind of throws fuel onto the fire. I'd probably say there are ways that you can look at it beforehand, and one way would be the first absolute 100 thing you would have to do is, if you think it's a problem with the GPU, then don't run a manual overclock at the same time. Clear the overclock, run it at default, it's already factory overclocked, and then try the game and see if you're having the problem. Then you can move on to anything else. But that is your absolute first port of call, is to clear your manual overclock first. Yeah, that's it. And that's my advice to anyone. Like, if you're having instability in games, don't run a manual overclock. Clear that. See if you're still getting the instability. Because you're never going to fix... Well, I'm not going to say never. Maybe there is an instance where a game isn't running particularly well, and by adding a bit more to your memory bandwidth, by upping your memory clock, you might be able to smooth it out. So I'm not going to say never, but generally you're not going to fix instability in a game by running an overclock. You're only going to make games more unstable. So I'm going to leave it there. It's not a dig. It's why I'm helping, I don't know. But if it is help, then it is help. If it's not help, then it might be help to people that have watched the video, that actually care. So that's it. I'm going to leave it there, and I'll catch you in the next one.